Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
And welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music. My name is Daniella Cohen. This week's guest is Daniella Rabbani. This week, Amidst Falling Walls will premiere on PBS. Amidst Falling Walls is a Drama Desk Award-winning musical by the National Yiddish Theatre Folksbiene. It honors spiritual resistance during the Holocaust by bringing to life Yiddish songs and poetry written in ghettos, cabarets, and concentration camps, starring Daniella Rabbani, Rachel Zatcoff, and Steven Skybell, among many others. Daniella Rabbani is an actress, filmmaker, podcast host, and internationally recognized Yiddish performer whose work bridges storytelling, culture, and modern media. She has appeared in major television series, independent films, and Hollywood blockbusters, including Ocean's 8 and The Americans. I hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm well, how are you?
Good. I love that Pirkei Avot right behind you.
You start in Amidst Falling Walls during a very difficult time in the Jewish community. What was it like for you?
Oh, man. I think there was something about being in a show about, Jewish creativity and resilience in the Holocaust that was both very activating for my, nervous system and also very soothing at the same time. But once it was over, I really felt like, oh gosh, I now have to be in reality and I have to deal with the fact that, it's really very sad to be confronted with so much, really so much hate, so much in our time. I didn't expect to be so taken out by it after the show ended, but I guess it was almost harder because I didn't have an outlet. As an artist,
Yes.
There's something about having an outlet and a purpose for my pain and a purpose for my anger and words, words, and people to tell those words to, of people who understand or at least care enough to buy a ticket. But I think that's the life of an actor, right?
Yes.
I'm hoping I can, gather I'm trying to be really kind with myself these days because I'm recognizing that, if I want to be helpful in any way, artistically, as a mother, as a friend, as a Jewish person with something to say, I have to take care of myself. So I'm being gentle with myself, but then I'm hoping to create a Yiddish album, actually.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it could be really. I've been singing in Yiddish for nearly 2 decades, and I think it's probably about time to record.
Absolutely. How did you fall in love with theater, acting, and music?
It was very early on for me, actually. I was always a very animated personality. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. My brother and sister are 10 and 7 years older than me. And when they didn't think I was annoying, they thought I was entertaining, funny. They would teach me songs. My father has a beautiful voice, and I sort of inherited that sort of dramatic flair from him. And they would teach me songs, and that's how I would befriend my older siblings. I had nothing else to offer. They were 10, 7 years older than me. And so, if I could make them laugh, oh my gosh, I like the jackpot. I just that was it for me that day. I could go to sleep happy. And then, when I started doing plays in middle school, I went to a Jewish school actually, and I started doing plays, musicals there, and I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm excelling. It wasn't that I wasn't smart in school or anything. I did well, but it felt like that was like the stage was my place. I felt good doing what I was doing, and still, like, even when I'm not living up to my own standards, I just like it. Like, I just am having a good time. So it was like a childhood calling, and I somehow made it a reality.
What was your first professional play or work?
When I graduated from the Stella Adler studio within the New York University Tisch School of the Arts, um, the artistic director, who's Stella Adler's grandson, said, "You act like my family." His family being Stella Adler and her father, Jacob P. Adler, who was a huge star of the Yiddish stage. And he sort of took me under his wing. And my first professional production in New York City off Broadway was called God of Vengeance, which was a translation of a Shalom Ash play from Yiddish to English. And from there, I was introduced to the National Yiddish Theatre. It's the longest running off Broadway theater company here in New York City. And I started studying Yiddish. I hadn't learned it before. My parents spoke to me in Hebrew, and my grandparents did speak Yiddish. But in order to sort of continue on that legacy of Stella and Jacob P. Adler, and of my own ancestors in my mind, I think of myself as a sort of granddaughter of that tradition as well. I needed to learn the language, so I started studying Yiddish, and I made like my professional union debut in a play called Gimple Tom, or Gimple the Fool, which was an adaptation of an Isaac Bashevis Singer short story. And that was my first foray into long form Yiddish theater presented with subtitles, sort of like the opera. And I have been doing it for about 18 years now, along with other things. I've done TV and film, and just regular English speaking theater. But the Yiddish theater has always a very special place in my heart.
Could you talk about your most recent work with Yiddish theater, Amidst Falling Walls?
Sure. I've been working on a version of Amid Falling Walls for about 10 years. It originated as music that was written and performed in the Holocaust, that was compiled in a book by a man named Shmelke Kaczykinski, who survived. He was a writer himself, and after the war, he traveled around asking survivors if they sang and what they sang, and he wrote it all down and published this anthology of really beautiful, sometimes biting, sometimes funny and uplifting, like incredible art. He published that anthology and then got on a plane and died. And it was such a testament, that story is such a testament to the power of music and how music itself lived on, and the literacy of the Jewish people, actually. their stories and music and soul lived on, but that the people themselves died, including the curator. And so years later, my mentor, Zalman Mlotek, and his musical partner at the time, Adrienne Cooper, she should have a blessed memory, got together and created an album called Ghetto Tango, which is still available, based on this anthology, based on the music that was written and performed in the Holocaust, what Adrienne Cooper called art at the edge of the abyss. And when Adrienne passed away 10 years ago, they had concerts on the books to perform. And Zalman called and said, I'm wondering if you would learn this repertoire. And so I did. And I performed that repertoire for about 10 years in concert form with Zalman and his son Avram. And about a year and a half ago, they started workshopping a staged version, theatrical version of this concert that would have, 6 actors, two swings off stage, a full band, and really bring this concert to life. What we didn't know a year and a half ago, or 10 years ago, or 30 years ago, when Adrienne and Zalman were performing this, or even 70 years ago when Shmerke Kaczyginski was, compiling this material, was that October 7th happened the day before we started rehearsals for this piece about Jewish resilience, about comforting our Jewish brothers and sisters in immense pain and fear. And so we did our job. We came to work the next day, and it had been like I never saw these words before. There were some new songs, actually, and there were certainly new people in the room. But I was performing this material as if to say, look where we had been, and aren't we glad anti-Semitism isn't a thing anymore, and there are people suffering in the world, let's help them. That's how I interpreted the material 10 years ago, and for 10 years. And all of a sudden, in a post-October 7 world, I saw this material as unbearably relevant and important. And so we performed for a month to audiences who really needed some, what we would call in Yiddish, chizuk. In Hebrew, it's called chizuk, a bit of strength, a reminder of our beauty, our solidarity. And it was a really beautiful production of Amid Falling Walls. Yeah, very meaningful.
Strange that this happened with October 7, because another Jewish man I interviewed before October 7 was staging a musical on Anne Frank, and it also premiered that week.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. I think for many Jewish people, we grew up with, of course, the stories of persecution, and a feeling of triumph. Like, look what we could overcome. While our parents would say, you know what, history always repeats itself. Just make sure, that people hate Jews, and we would roll our eyes at them thinking, oh, come on. Not anymore. It's been a real fall from grace to know oh no, they were right.
My grandparents were absolutely petrified of being recognizable as Jewish for most of their lives after what happened. My grandfather was in a camp, so.
Oh. And look, I see you with your chamsa
Yeah.
and your menorah in the background, your Pirkei Avot in the background. Beautiful. I think the big difference, though, is that we do have the state of Israel, and I will often, sometimes I have the privilege of speaking to Holocaust survivors. My grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and they'll always reiterate, this would never happen if we had Israel. And it was really scary to see, when I saw the images of October 7th, I turned to my husband and I was like, this is Kristallnacht, like, this is a pogrom, but not in our home in the shtetl. This is a pogrom in our homeland. That was really unnerving. But we do live in a different time. I try to remind myself of that. We do live in a different time. Like my grandparents and the people who wrote the music and the material that I just sang, Holocaust survivors, Holocaust victims, they never knew that a Holocaust could happen. There was violence, there were pogroms, there was enormous hardship, but they didn't live in a world where the Holocaust had ever taken place,
Yes.
But there's like a heads up in a way, like we're not taking this lying down.
I think that's what a lot of people, non-Jewish people, don't understand when we warn and talk about it. That, well, we know the history and they seem to just be against hearing it. They don't want to hear us warning and talking.
Yeah, I know the sort of gaslighting, they call it.
Yes.
Around, oh, you're being hyperbolic or you're being neurotic. I feel really shaken by that. And I know the truth. I know that history repeats itself. I know Jewish history. My grandparents are from Iran. I grew up in a Persian community here in New York. Why were there so many Persian Jews here in New York and in Los Angeles? We are not welcome in Iran. That's where we were for thousands of years. On my DNA, it says that I'm half Iranian because my family was there for so long. They have no interest in us. They have no interest in us existing in Iran or at all. And I know that because I live that. I'm not allowed back in Esfahan. My grandparents have a home in Jerusalem. That's where I have the keys to. I know that. So, it's like I hear people misappropriating our history, and I won't have it.
True, and in the end, history is being taught badly by itself because when I went to school, we didn't get proper history at all. Well,
in the Netherlands, I'm so curious, how many Jews are in the Netherlands now?
Not that many anymore. In the past, there was a really rich Jewish life, but over the years, well, a lot of people died. The Holocaust survivors got older and died, and then the other half a lot of them moved to Israel, America. So it's getting smaller and smaller. We had a real big Jewish culture here in theater and music. And there was an actor, Edwin de Vries, who always produced, the last few years, he was on the last of people who produced Jewish historical plays.
Wow. And would people from outside of the community come to see it?
Yes, his work is very popular here, especially his Soldier of Orange, Soldaat van Oranje. I was wondering, you were talking about wanting to do an album in the future.
Oh my gosh, I really do want to do an album. A Yiddish album, and then come to the Netherlands and perform.
Yes. I wonder, do you have anyone who wants to produce it or work on it?
I have lots of people who want to work on it, but I don't know the first thing about being a recording artist. If anyone listening would like to, my dear friend Joni Leeds is actually, she's a Grammy winner, and she's inspired me to, produce an album. I only ever perform live, and she has an initiative going on at the Grammys to create a Jewish category, because apparently there are several Christian categories, and being that ethnic Jewish music has a real distinct character,
Absolutely.
she's really hoping to create that that category. What they do need are albums to make that a sort of necessity. So I'm inspired more and more for various reasons. But also I think, Yiddish music does tell the story of a world lost and chronicled at the same time. It really paints a real picture of vivid life, before, during, and after the war, but mostly, hundreds of years of Jewish life in Europe. And that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, you're telling me that in the Netherlands, the community has gotten smaller and smaller, and I'm sure that's true for other European Jewish communities. And it's really amazing because the Yiddish canon has so many different influences, from Roma music, or here in New York, the Broadway flavor, or tango, which was really palpable and exciting right at the beginning of World War II. And so you can hear all of that mixed with liturgical sounds, and of course the sound of Yiddish itself, which is a language that is baked in a pie with Lashon Kodesh, which is Hebrew and German, and there's some French in there, there's Polish, and of course there are different accents from different parts of Eastern Europe. But it's like a really immersive experience. Every 2-3 minute song, you're sort of stepping into a time and a place that really just no longer exists.
True. The man I talked about, the Edwin de Vries, he did a Westerbork serenade. It was about music recorded in Westerbork, the camp. And he performed, he played his own father in the show, and sang all the songs that were recorded during the time.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I do think singing has been one of the many ways that the Jewish soul has survived, survived the many centuries of trauma, being hunted down like prey. And I really do think that we know that singing is healthy, that actually it engages the vagus nerve and it strengthens it, and it is a healing tool. It's also very bonding. There's something in Yiddish music and Hasidic music that they call a niggin, or a wordless melody. And, we would sing these tunes, ya ba bye bye bye, ya ba bye 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 bye, and we would just, repeat it one to the other in a sort of cantorial back and forth. It's very bonding for the community all over the world.
Absolutely.
I have to head out.
Okay. Yes.
But thank you so much for taking the time to get to know me.
Thank you too.
Hey, talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.